Welcome to the Therapy Show podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard. In each episode, I interview a seasoned and knowledgeable talk therapist from the counseling world to glean valuable insights, techniques, and tools that you can apply to your practice and your life. And if you're considering a career in the counseling field or just want to hear about what it's like to be a talk therapist, then this is the podcast for you. Before we jump into today's episode, if you're looking for fun and convenient continuing education contact hours, I have you covered. Episodes 1, 2, and 3 are now approved for CE contact hours, and y'all, more are on their way. So no more having to sit at your computer and watch a recorded webinar. You can listen to the Therapy Show episodes anywhere, anytime you please. And if you want to get the contact hour, just head over to my site, lisamustard.com, click on pod courses, and then click purchase. We think it's pretty simple and easy, yet if you have any issues with your purchase, just send us an email. And if you want to get one free contact hour, be sure to head over to my website again, lisamustard.com, and sign up for my email newsletter because you're going to get a code that gives you one free hour of continuing education. And who doesn't love free, right? Today's guest and topic is all about avoiding the overwhelm and burnout. Sarah Leitschuh is a therapist whose mission is to help you simplify and manage your practice with more ease. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist who practices in Eagan, Minnesota. And through her work with her company, The Vibrant Therapist Consulting, Sarah supports other therapists in discovering how to do their work in a way that energizes them and doesn't leave them depleted when it comes time for personal interests and relationships. Some of the things we discuss: simplifying your practice, rethinking your to-do list, systems and routines to manage your practice with more ease, decluttering your schedule, the power of saying no and establishing solid boundaries. And Sarah gives great tips and ideas to help you thrive in your work. And we hope you enjoy today's episode. Well, hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Therapy Show. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard. I have a really great guest on today. She's going to talk to us about simplifying your private practice. Her name is Sarah Leitschuh, and I'm really excited to have her onto the podcast today. So welcome, Sarah. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Oh, you're welcome. And I know I share with the listeners that most of the time I do these with the video up on Zoom, and I just want you guys to know that Sarah has like the warmest smile and she's got some energy, and I have a great feeling this is going to be a really fun topic for us to dive into today. So Sarah, before we jump into it, I love to ask the question, how did you decide to become a therapist?
Absolutely. That's such a great question, and something that after you've been in the field for a while, I think it's easy to lose sight of. So I love that you start with that question. After I went to undergrad, I was working in the county system here in Minnesota, and I mean, the work just wasn't fulfilling me. Like, I wanted to be more directly helping people, and I was behind the scenes, and it felt like we were almost like enabling people to stay stuck in the work that I was doing through the county. And I knew I wanted more one-on-one work. I wanted to be able to support clients through transformation and change. And that's when I went back to graduate school for marriage and family therapy.
Oh, neat. So you started in an agency doing similar work, but not as a clinical therapist. Is that right?
It was in the county system, but it wasn't in a mental health type of
Oh,
agency. It was more like behind the scenes, like economic supports for families.
right. So it was more about problem solving and not teaching like systems or like how to
Yeah,
stop
right.
perpetuating the problem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think that's really great because you wanted to get at like the root of why there's a problem to begin with. So that's really cool. Did you grow up being the person that people came to with their problems or anything like that?
Yeah, I always think of myself as like the helper in all realms of
Yeah.
life. And I remember that from being a child also.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for sharing. Where did you go to grad school?
I went to graduate school at Argosy University here in the Twin Cities area. They're no longer here, but
Oh,
that's where I went to my MFT program.
nice. And I love meeting other MFTs. I feel like we are like soul sisters, just it's funny when you connect with another LMFT, it's like we get each other. Like we get that look on our faces and it's like, I get you. We get
Isn't
each
it?
other.
Yeah, it feels so validating to
Mhm.
connect with people who share a similar perspective
It
on the
does.
world, which is why I love talking to therapists so
Yeah,
much.
I know. I could just if I could just spend my day and get paid to hang out with therapists and have like, great discussions, oh, life I would just be so fulfilled and so excited. And that's why I love this podcast is I it's selfish. I get to connect with amazing people like you. So, thanks for being here. Now, let's talk about what it is that you do and how you help other therapists.
Absolutely. So at this point in my career, I am doing my private practice part time and then part time doing my work with the Vibrant Therapist Consulting, which is really all about helping other therapists and myself right through the process figure out how to do this work in a way that actually works for us, that leaves us energized at the end of the day so that we have something to take with us when we go home and want to devote time and energy to ourselves, to our personal relationships, to the things that we're interested in outside of the therapy office.
Ooh, I love that. You're speaking my language too. So how do you do that? How do you help therapists? What does that look like?
Absolutely. I work with therapists in a variety of ways. I do some one on one coaching, I do some group coaching, but I also just connect with people through free platforms too, right? I have a Facebook community called the Vibrant Therapist Community. I do some blogging, lots of interviews like this just to spread the word that we as therapists, and especially as therapists in private practice, do not have to be nearly as overwhelmed as we may be in this
Right.
exact moment. And I honestly believe that this is an ongoing process, even though like I'm very intentional about simplifying my practice and trying to keep my overwhelm at bay. It's a process of constantly checking in with myself and tweaking the way that I'm doing things in order to make sure that I stay
Right.
in this place of more ease and less
Right.
overwhelm.
I really like that. And I think in just personally, I'm hearing what you're saying and I'm applying that to what I'm doing in the podcast world. Just figuring out my systems way to keep it easy. Well, not easy, but easier for myself where I don't get into the overwhelm, where I know you're going to talk a little bit about scheduling and finding that it's not really a balance, but finding the system that works well for me, where I do
Mm-hmm.
get to balance work life and not feel completely like I live and die by my phone or live and die by
Yeah,
my emails. And because I think that as therapists, partly we're wired that way, to help and to serve and to be available. But then we also know that if we give too much of that, if our boundaries get weird and we don't set up good systems for ourselves, we can lead to burnout. And
absolutely.
that's a hard place to be. And it is a check and balance, and it's also a process. So, can you talk to us about what does it look like to work with you? I'm really curious about like how do you do that? And you said individual and group coaching. So, how do they find you to set that up?
Absolutely. So I have a website, sarahleitschuh.com, and I'm sure you'll
Oh
include the
yeah.
typing of the spelling of that last name in your
Sure.
show notes,
Will do.
Lisa. But from there, there's a link to schedule a clarity call with me. And that's honestly the starting point of most of the work that I do with people is we get on a quick call and people tell me about what's contributing to their overwhelm. And I work with them to come up with at least one or two actionable strategies that they can take with them that day to start implementing in their practice to find a little more ease. And from there, generally what happens, people are like, oh yeah, I really love this. Like, this is a really great fresh perspective. And then we kind of segue into either one-on-one coaching or group coaching. And maybe it's not like immediately, right? Like maybe we're building relationship, I'm checking in with people, and eventually they come into one of my paid programs. But honestly, mostly people find me and have that first conversation before we do anything
Oh,
more in
cool.
depth.
Cool. So you do like a free call? Is that a free thing
Yep,
that you
it's
do?
a
Oh,
free
nice.
20-minute clarity call.
Ooh, I like it. I like the clarity call because going into it, it's like you're going to get some clarity
Mm-hmm.
as you're having the conversation with Sarah. So I really like that. Can you give us some examples of success stories or folks that you've worked with that, like before they came to Sarah, they were feeling this, that, and the other, and then after working with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Something that you said earlier really resonated with me. Some of the coaching, one in particular, coaching client that I'm thinking of, talks about like working with me was like life changing because she realized she did not have to be working all the time, that she did value so much outside of her work, and her identity had become so wrapped up in being a therapist, and there wasn't any time left for the other stuff. So I was able to help her get caught up on areas of backlog in her practice so that she could free up time and energy for other things and pursuing other interests and relationships that she wanted to pursue outside of the therapy office.
That sounds great. So I really like that story. And yeah, I agree. There's a lot of identity that goes into being a therapist. I've really had to work on that over the past 6 months, but I think that's fascinating. And I think therapists listening, I think most of them would agree. We like being the therapist. We like being told that we help people. We like, so there's some of that we have to process as we're going through understanding what is going on, that we're so overwhelmed. And if we carry that with us everywhere we go, we start to see everything as something to help or fix, or that's my role, that's what I do. We can burn out. So
Absolutely.
I'm imagining you're helping people with that too.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say, one of my first tips that I wanted to share with you and your audience about simplifying your private practice is to be really clear on your why and say no and set boundaries accordingly. Because honestly, this is the reason why I ended up doing the work I do with the Vibrant Therapist Consulting, because I wanted to go into private practice so that I could be a therapist and be a mom, right? And a lot of my time at that point was really being a stay-at-home mom and therapy on the side. But I quickly found out I was not doing it right. I was stressed out. I was trying to juggle too much, and I lost sight of that why, right? My why was to show up really for my family and keep my practice going, keep my therapy skills fresh, but it wasn't be working all the time.
Right.
And I was burnt out, right? And I had to make some shifts, and reconnecting with my why for why I showed up in private practice, why I was interested in continuing to stay in private practice was really essential in helping me figure out what I needed to let go of and where I was going to set boundaries and how I was going to specifically do things differently.
Yeah. Oh, I just got all the feels listening to you talk, because that's very familiar to me, that process. And I think sometimes we feel like we're kind of alone in that process, because it's hard well, for me, it was hard to say to my peers or to my husband even, because I spent a lot of time becoming a therapist and studying to become a therapist. And I love this work. But at the same time, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I'd rather have energy for my family. And I feel so pulled. It's weird,
Yeah.
So I know you're helping a lot of people for sure.
And I think, Lisa, that evolves over time, right? What feels sustainable in private practice at one point in our career is not the same thing that feels sustainable at another point in our career. And I honestly, I 100% believe in all the things I talk about and knowing your why and pursuing that. But I still get anxious when people ask me things like, how many therapy clients do you see? Right? And I'm going to answer honestly, but I have that anxiety of how are they going to perceive that and what's their judgment about what I'm doing, even though I know it's exactly right for me.
I know. I feel it too. I so feel it too. So you are not alone. And I'm glad that we can talk about this, because I think we need to talk about it. I think a lot of therapists feel this way, but we just don't say too much because we're humans. We don't want to be judged, We don't want to be judged. So I'm really enjoying this. So what other tips do you have? This is great.
Yeah. So the second tip I wanted to share about simplifying your private practice is to be really clear about mapping out your time. When are you working? When are you not working? And you don't have to be super rigid about it. I am a believer in flexibility, but I think it really helps to know when you're, wearing your therapist hat and when you're not.
Yeah.
And then from there to be even more specific in how you're spending your work time. How many client slots do you want to have in your schedule? And make sure that you've blocked out specific time to dedicate to all the other behind the scenes work that we have to do as therapists, to keep current with your documentation, to keep current with your phone calls and emails, marketing, right? Like all of that stuff. You want to make sure that you know that you have enough time for all of the tasks that you need to do.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And that's not something in the beginning I paid a lot of attention to. It was like,
No.
oh, I'll get that done tomorrow. But, you go back to do those notes tomorrow and gosh, they're just not as fresh. Or,
Mhm.
you feel like, did I document that correctly? Or, so I think that's really such a good tip. Very, very important. Marketing too. That's a lot of the time that's an afterthought for therapists. And
Yep.
we want, to get more clients, we have to be thinking about that for sure.
Right. And you want to make sure that you're intentional in like carving out specific time for the things that are important for you. Otherwise, the week flies by. And once you
Mhm.
start, I don't know, this is what happens to me. Like once I get into my really heavy client days, those days are just gone.
Yeah.
Just seeing clients and keeping up with what's going on is enough for me. And if I don't intentionally block off time for other tasks, they're not going to get done. And then I'm going to feel frustrated with myself, disappointed that I didn't get things done that I wanted to get done that were truly like important
Right.
to me.
Right. Oh, yeah, I hear you. I totally get it.
But I think it's easy to think, and especially when you first start, like, and you don't have a full caseload, it's like, oh, there's a lot of time, right?
Mhm.
Like, I'll get to that. And either you do or you don't. But the more clients that you have, the fuller your schedule gets, the harder it is to get everything done if you haven't dedicated specific time. And that's when the backlog starts to build up. That's when you feel like you're not accomplishing anything. You're stuck, you're spinning your wheels, and you kind of slide into this major state of overwhelm.
Oh, yeah, and that's no fun to be in that space of overwhelm. Do you find that there are certain tasks that, like, the majority of your clients or therapists that you encounter just dread the most? Because I can think of one, but what do you notice?
Notes comes up a
Yeah.
lot. Anything related to documentation comes up a lot.
Yeah.
Email, honestly, though, is something that people tend to let pile up if they don't have a really good system about it. And that can feel overwhelming. I do a webinar periodically called Take Charge of Your Email Inbox. And I talk about how there was a point when I had like thousands of emails sitting in my inbox because I didn't have a good system of using folders and deleting stuff. So stuff would just sit there. And I would dread going in there because I didn't know what I was going to find. I was worried I was forgetting about stuff. And I really had to create a solid system to stay current with that.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good I didn't think about email, but I'm finding that the busier I get with bringing people onto the show, I have to have a better
Yeah.
system for my emails. So,
Mhm.
I'm finding that and this is a tip I learned a long time ago, is I don't have to reply right away to the emails just because I check them
Yep.
maybe in the morning or later. It's like, have a dedicated time to follow
Yep.
up with the emails. As long as
Absolutely.
I'm, like, within 24 hours, I feel
Yep.
like being productive.
Mhm.
But I like the
Yep.
idea of folders, so I might have to
Yep.
start doing that for the podcast. Thank you for reminding me about that.
Absolutely. And I do a lot of batching with my emails because I only technically work Monday through Thursday. So when we get towards like the end of the week or anything that might come in Friday, like if I happen to look at my email, like I move stuff around into folders that are like things that require follow up the next week so that it's not sitting there like distracting me, hanging over my head. And I know that I have dedicated time on Mondays to do all my email cleanup from stuff that came in over my long weekend. And then because I'm really heavy on clients on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I also do another email cleanup on Thursdays
Mhm.
before I go into my long weekend. So anything that requires more time, like maybe I have to log into some online system to look up information, I will save that till Thursday and just kind of knock all of that stuff out at once.
Nice. I like that. I really like that. It's really smart. This episode of The Therapy Show is sponsored by my favorite fitness apparel, Zaya Active. I recently discovered Zaya Active when I went looking for high quality and premium workout clothes. Just like those luxury store and catalog brands, yet I wanted a budget-friendlier price tag. I love this brand because number one, I live a very active lifestyle. I hit the gym about 5 days a week, plus I love to go for runs and long walks, which I consider to be my very important self-care and podcast listening time. Plus, the endorphins I get from my workouts keep me in my happy mental space. The clothes stay put, I'm not constantly pulling on my leggings or tugging on my sports bras, and they accentuate me in all the right places. And number 2, when I work from home, I love to be comfortable in leggings, also known as yoga pants, and a tank top. Plus, I can transition to running out the door to pick up our girls or run errands while still looking put together in my athleisure styles. My favorite workout leggings are the light and tights, and my favorite everyday wear are the everywhere pants. I literally wear them everywhere, every day. I can even wear them to business meetings or client consultations. I can dress them up or down easily. Want to learn more? Head over to lisamustard.com and click on the activewear page. You can learn all about Zaya Active, the mission, the clothes, and see if they are a fit for you and your active life. From weight training to running to Zumba to yoga to CrossFit to bar to walking to tennis, Zaya Active has you covered. And don't forget about the active men in your life. They have an amazing men's line, plus clothes for active kids too. That's Zaya like papaya active. So see my site for all the details. Well, I was going to ask, so you said documentation was the other one, right?
Yep. So documentation. Yep.
Okay. And emails. Are there any others that kind of, or what about any outliers, like stuff maybe I wouldn't think about that are struggles for people?
It doesn't come up as often, but anything related to like financial stuff, keeping up with your accounting kind of periodically comes up. It's one of those tasks that's easy to put off to the end of the year, making sure you have everything in order. But again, that makes the end of the year so overwhelming. So I really encourage my clients to work on like consistently keeping up with any of their accounting. And related to that is billing too. Sometimes I'm surprised by how much billing can slide for some therapists that are doing insurance-based practices.
Oh, well, I mean, I can imagine it's just another, and then you have to probably learn the different systems for the different insurance companies, and it's time consuming and it can be frustrating if it's not like intuitive or it takes time away from your being with your family, So I really like how you what I imagine is that you get a really good sense of where the struggles are, and then you help them implement processes to just free themselves of the overwhelm. That's kind of
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. And I love your name, by the way. I meant to tell you when we started, Vibrant Coaching. I love that. That just gives me such a beautiful picture of where we want to be, with our systems and how it's working for us and not against us. So I've always loved the word vibrant. So I think that's really cool. That's part of your business.
Thank you. I want to talk more about systems and routines in a second, but I want to say something about the name, the Vibrant Therapist, because I think like what I truly believe is that we all are vibrant therapists as we stand here right now. But sometimes it's hard to see that in ourselves, and it's hard to really embrace that. And we think like we're struggling, we're so overwhelmed, we're just so exhausted that we aren't vibrant. And I really like to help draw out the vibrancy that is already within each of us and create a space that allows people to shine as their vibrant selves.
Oh, I love that. And I'm guessing that you help them with that. Like you help therapists find that vibrant side of themselves again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
And like that's part of it is just like recognizing where we're already doing well, right? And building from that space, because we can get so stuck in what's not going well, where we feel like we're failing, where we're embarrassed and ashamed to tell other people in this field that we're struggling. And we think that's who we are. And that's only part of how we're showing up professionally, right? Like we're all probably doing some amazing work with our clients. We all have our administrative strengths as well as our weaknesses, right? So I like to help people create systems and routines that allow them to shine more as a whole.
Yeah.
So we build off of what systems are already working for them and carry that into other realms.
Okay, nice. I'm excited. I want to work with you. I want you to help me. So this is really cool. Well, I know you said you wanted to get back to more about some tips and ideas. So
yeah,
what else you got?
Sure. So we already talked about being clear on your why and using that information to say no and set boundaries accordingly, map out your time. The third tip that I want to share is really about using systems and routines, because a system and a routine helps you know what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and why you're going to do it. And it takes out that guesswork of finding time and figuring out how to do it. That's probably one of the hardest things for therapists is figuring out the how. You mentioned earlier, like people are, learning new systems, right? Like a lot of therapists that I'm working with are in the process of implementing something in their practice, such as maybe a new EHR or an accounting system, or they really want to tweak their paperwork, but the project seems so big that they can't figure out how to do it. And they know it's going to help them because it's a system and a routine. So what I really help them do is like, let's get to the babyest step. What's the very first thing that you need to do? And if we can do that very first thing, then what's the next thing that we can do? And then before you know it, you have implemented a system that's really going to help you manage your practice more effectively.
Nice. So it's like a baby step. It's
Yes.
identifying what it is that you want to change and then creating steps that are not overwhelming to get you
Yeah.
there. I
Yeah.
love that.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. That's awesome.
And sometimes when I'm talking with my coaching clients or just doing clarity calls with therapists in general, they have like this big aha of like, oh yeah, I could start there. But then they almost feel silly about it too. Like, why did I need to talk to you, Sarah, to figure that out? And that's okay. We all get stuck sometimes. And sometimes the process of just talking it through with a coach can be so powerful.
Oh yeah. Gosh, completely. Sometimes, I totally agree with that. And I mean, I just love that because that's why coaching is great. That's why therapy is great.
Mhm.
We come to our own conclusions, but
Yeah.
if we are in our head all the time and we're not able to, express it,
Mhm.
that's where it's going to stay and we just
Yep.
stay stuck. So I can
Yep.
imagine that in 20 minutes, they're like, this is awesome. All I needed was to hear you tell me to go, okay, well, what I hear what you're saying is, have you thought about trying it like this? Let's baby step it.
Mhm.
I love
Yep.
that. That's
And
so great.
sometimes all we need is the permission,
Oh,
right? From someone saying, yes, you got this. Like that makes sense. Go ahead and set this boundary. Go ahead and change your schedule or go ahead and invest the money in
yeah.
this idea that you have,
Yeah,
right? Like sometimes we
totally.
want that permission from someone outside of
Oh, yeah.
ourselves.
I'm always looking for permission outside of well, not always, but the past year I have been like, somebody tell me it's okay for me to do something different,
Yes,
and now
absolutely.
I believe it in myself and I can help other
Hmm.
people. So I think it's really cool that, you don't just help and coach other therapists on this idea, like you've actually put this stuff because of your own need. You
Hmm.
had to do this for you to feel vibrant and for you to feel like good in your work. So
Hmm.
I think
Absolutely.
that's a really neat story in a way and a really great way to help other people. So,
Yeah. And these are things that I'm like continuing to, like I
mhm,
said earlier, keep working on and reassess in myself and adjust
yeah,
accordingly.
well, that's cool. Are there more tips that you have?
Regarding systems and routines, I just wanted to share a couple of examples of
Mhm.
areas that therapists might want to look at in their practice if they want to
Okay.
refine some systems. So, intake process, how you onboard a new client, documentation is always fair game for some systems. Communications, thinking about your process for responding to voicemail and also emails like we talked about earlier. And then even marketing, I think it's really helpful to have a system that you use to kind of make sure that you're continually marketing yourself and not letting marketing slide as you get fuller.
Yeah, because just because 'cause you're full doesn't mean you should stop marketing yourself, I'm
Right.
guessing,
Yeah.
right?
You're going
Yeah.
to eventually need some more clients again, right?
Yeah. So, can you give some idea so this is a good interesting question. So, let's say you are full, because
Mhm.
I, like, was talking to a gal last week, and I was asking her if she wanted to come on to the podcast, and I said, one of a different podcast, another one that I'm a part of, and I said, "One of the cool things about it is that you can get referrals out of it if you want." She was like, "Well, I'm not taking new anybody right now. I don't wanna do that." And I was like, "Well, you still
Mhm.
get your name out there. You still give
Mhm. Yep.
value."
Right.
So, how would you help a therapist kind of think that through? Because I think what we think is if I'm not taking new clients, I don't want to market myself.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and I really operate from an abundance perspective, which I think you probably
Yeah.
can pick up on, and I think that's the same energy that you operate from too, Lisa. So, what I'm doing is not always about trying to fill my practice right
Right.
now or my Vibrant Therapist consulting business right now either,
Right.
right? It's about making sure that people are hearing the message that I'm trying to spread, and that knowing that that message is valuable to people, whether they never work with me or they work with me 5 years from now, right? And I think a lot of marketing is about relationship building. So although you might not need a client right this minute, down the line, when you do have space on your schedule, it's going to be easier to fill that if people know who you are also.
Right.
And the other thing from the abundance perspective is I am always, like every single week, making referrals outside of my practice. And that feels good to me to know my community of therapists in this area and to be able to say to a potential client, like, I'm sorry that I can't see you, but I know this person that I think would be a great fit, or these 3 people. And I know that circles back around later when I have a spot available that those same colleagues are going to be willing to refer
Right.
to me.
Right. And I don't know about you, but it's hard to, well, nowadays we do so much, people are on social media looking for solutions to their problems. And so
Yep.
my whole thing with other therapists is I don't know, nowadays, like, I'm not looking in the traditional places to get referrals anymore. Like, I'm not going to go ask my doctor, who
Mhm.
would you recommend? Like, I'm looking to my peers, I'm looking to
Yep.
what's out there. So if you're not out there sharing a little bit of value, a little bit of information, even if you're not taking clients right now,
Yep.
you know, other therapists won't know you exist.
Yep.
So
Right.
I think you have to almost have some type of presence
Mhm.
nowadays,
Yep.
not just for future clients, but for your peers and your other
Right.
professionals. Because it's hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's hard to. It's like things are changing so quickly that I'm not in private practice. I don't take on coaching clients right now, but every week I get asked, "Are you working with people? Can you take new
Mhm.
people?" So
Mhm.
when if I decide to go back into it, like, I'm open now. So I think you're so wise to be recommending that, and
Mhm.
you should be thinking about marketing
Mhm.
no matter what.
Yeah, and if if you're really full, you can tone it down a little
Yeah.
bit, right? Like, I don't want you to be pushing marketing through a million different
Right.
realms, right? Like, go ahead and do marketing that feels right for you, feels like it
Mhm.
energizes you instead of sucks energy from you.
Right.
And the other thing that I think makes it easier to do that is if you're really using a system, right? Like, if you have a dedicated hour slot every week where you do, some content creation or scheduling social media posts or whatever it is. Like, in the Vibrant Therapist community, I do Facebook Lives every Monday. And when I first started doing Facebook Lives a couple years ago, like, it freaked me out, right? Like, I didn't want to be on camera. I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I didn't know if people were going to care what I was saying, right? But now it's just my habit, right? Like, every Monday, pretty much at 11 o'clock Central, like, I hop in that group, I record the video, people know what to expect, and it's just part of my routine. My schedule is designed to allow for that.
That's great. Yeah. See, I love it. I love how you're doing Facebook Live too, because I truly believe that is the fastest way to grow know, like, and trust factors. And I think it's
Mhm.
great that you're doing it and people are seeing you and they're getting to know you. I think that's so smart. I love it. I'm so glad you're doing that. I talk to so many therapists. I'm like, go live, go live. And I know it's not for everybody, but you gotta, this is a free platform
Yep.
and we all, we love free. So why not learn to use it, at a level that you're comfortable with? So
Mhm.
I think
Yep.
that's really wise.
So I have one more tip for you, Lisa, if we have
All right.
time for
Of
one more.
course. Of course we do. Yeah.
So, last tip for
Mhm.
simplifying private practice is ask for help.
Mm.
And this is really hard for a lot of people to do because we're helpers, right? Like, we're used to being the ones that are supporting other people. When I think about asking for help, I think about looking for ways we can ask for help within our business, but also at home. If
Mhm.
you are so overwhelmed and you feel stuck, like, you got to ask for help. You just got to get over that hump of not wanting to do it,
Right.
because asking for help is going to free up some time and energy for you to actually make progress in reducing your overwhelm.
Yes. I asked for help last night at the Chick-fil-A drive-through.
Totally legit, right?
Yeah, I love it. I think you're so right. Like as therapists, I'll just own it. Okay, as me, I get caught in that I need to do everything and I need to do it to my level of
Mhm.
whatever.
Yep,
And I because I have to. I have to. What's wrong with me if I
yep,
can't make dinner for my kids? Well, some nights I don't have it in me to make dinner for my kids. So
mhm,
I'm okay with that now.
yep,
I own it. I say, girls, let's go get in the car and go to the drive through. We make it fun, and it's just today I have energy to create
mhm.
a meal for the family. So I love that. I know you were talking about ask for help in your business. So can you kind of give us some examples of what that would look like?
Absolutely. So I think part of what holds people back from asking for help in their business sometimes is they always feel like it has to be an expense, right? And especially if you're early in private practice, you're maybe a little anxious about spending money. So I encourage people to think a little bit outside of the box, right? Like if you don't have extra funds available to pay someone to help you, are there people that you know who have a skill set that could help you? So, for example, for me, like I have basic website skills, like I can update my website. I have no idea how to make it beautiful or like adding buttons, like that is outside of my scope of competence, and I know that, I own that. So at various points in time in my private practice, I have asked family members to help me if they knew how to do that. Sometimes I've paid for help depending on what kind of tweaking I wanted to do. But that's an example of I could spend hours on Google trying to learn how to write code. That is not the way my brain thinks. Like, I would be wasting so much time and still probably not have the results that I wanted. So it makes sense in that situation for me to reach out and ask
Right.
for help.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. Website development and podcast engineering, editing, I knew right away I had to outsource
Mhm.
those. And I was like, I will figure out a way to pay for it because if I don't have to deal with those headaches and the sleeplessness and the nights of being up trying to figure this,
Mhm.
yeah, totally. I think that's really wise. I know there's some other things that have helped that as soon as I'm able to, like I want to be able to hire a VA to help me
Mm,
with social
mhm.
media and
Yep.
with creating graphics. And, I know some folks hire like part-time receptionists for their private
Sure.
practice,
Yep.
or someone to help with them with their billing or
Yep.
with accounting. So I think you have to look at, like you said, like what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses and what are you willing to outsource because it's just
Right.
too much of a headache and it just
Yep.
won't get done or won't get
Mhm.
done well. So
Yep.
I really like your tips. This has been so helpful. Thank you. Is there anything else you want to share, like for tips? You've given so many great ones. I don't know. Is there
Yeah,
any?
those were the top
Okay,
kind of 4 that I was hoping to share today.
that's awesome. Well, where can our listeners find more Sarah if they want to connect with you?
Absolutely. They can find me on my website, sarahleitschuh.com. Like I said earlier, I hang out on Facebook quite a bit, so they can, well, like the public page, the Vibrant Therapist Consulting, as well as consider joining the Vibrant Therapist community.
Yeah, tell me about your community. I don't think I'm in there yet. What are you guys doing there?
Yeah, we're a pretty small, supportive community, really with that shared mission of really figuring out how to do this work in the way that energizes us and leaves us with something to spare, like I said. So we talk about work stuff, but we also talk about family stuff. I just posted in there the other night, like asking for vacation ideas for my family this summer. And I kind of talked about how I need a low key vacation. Going on a really intense vacation with little kids is not my idea of vibrance, right?
Right.
So we ask about those types of things. We do, like I said, every Monday I record a video in that group, and it's like an inspirational message to help my community connect with their vibrant selves. We do monthly mini challenges, and every year I do a week-long challenge in August called the Discover the Vibrant Therapist Within Challenge. And that's where our community formed, is from one of those challenges. We decided to keep on going.
Oh, that's really fun. I will definitely link all of your places to find Sarah in the show notes. So if you guys want to learn more about her, see her website, like her page, and then join her group, it sounds like I think I'm going to have to go invite myself into your group. It sounds really
Definitely.
fabulous.
We'd love to
Yeah.
have you.
Well, this has been such a great interview, Sarah. Thank you for coming onto the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed the time together.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, that wraps up another episode of The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine. Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover more fantastic content. And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.